The vast, inky blackness of space was momentarily disturbed by the blinding flash of a warp exit. The mighty strike cruiser, Sigismund's Fury, emerged, its black and white livery gleaming in the dim light of distant stars. Emblazoned on its prow was the iconic Black Templars cross, a symbol that struck fear into the hearts of heretics and Xenos across the galaxy. Inside the vessel, the atmosphere was one of focused intensity. The Black Templars, a chapter of the Adeptus Astartes known for their zealous devotion to the Emperor and their relentless crusading spirit, had been drawn to this remote sector by distress signals and rumors of a vast space hulk appearing from the warp. Marshal Ferox, a seasoned veteran with countless crusades under his belt, stood in the strategy room studying the hollow projected image of the hulk. It was an enormous, tangled mess of ships and wreckage, twisted and fused together by the incomprehensible forces of the warp, named the Desolation's Embrace. Its exterior bristled with the remnants of ancient void shields and rusted weapon batteries, while tendrils of green and purple energy snaked around it, a lingering echo of its warp origins. Surrounding Ferox were his sword brethren, elite warriors who had served alongside him for centuries. "We do not know what awaits us within the hulk," Ferox began, his voice a deep rumble. "But our duty is clear. We are the Emperor's sword, and we shall cleanse this abomination of any taint or threat." Chaplain Mordecai, a spiritual leader of the Templars, stepped forward, his skull helm making his voice eerily resonant. "The warp is strong in that construct. It is not just metal and void. It is a breeding ground for heresy, for the forces of chaos, and possibly other older evils." Brother Artus, a tech marine, interfaced with the ship's cogitators, his mechadendrites whirring with activity. "Scans indicate pockets of life signs. Some match known heretical factions, others are inconclusive. The very nature of the hulk makes it difficult to get a clear reading." Ferox nodded. "Then we proceed with caution. Prepare the assault boats. We shall form boarding parties and commence the cleansing." As the Templars readied themselves, rites of purity were chanted, and sacred oaths were taken. The ship's hangar bays echoed with the sounds of chainswords being revved and bolters loaded. Drop pods were prepped, servitors worked diligently, and combat servoskulls floated, scanning and recording every detail. As the first boarding parties began their descent towards the Desolation's Embrace, Ferox took a moment to stand on the observation deck. The belly of the Desolation's Embrace was a grotesque tapestry of combined histories, a deranged fusion of ships, each with their own tale of sorrow and horror, now knotted together into one malevolent entity. The distant echoes of ghostly lamentations whispered through the rusty hallways, hinting at the tragedies that once occurred within the vast maze of corridors. Marshal Ferox, with his cadre of Black Templars, ventured further into the hulk. Their heavy ceramite boots thudded rhythmically against the grated metal floors, causing ripples in the pools of stagnant water that had gathered in the sunken cavities. Their path was lit only by the dull glow of lumens and the occasional flickering light panel, long past its operational prime. Every room the Templars entered painted a haunting scene. One vast chamber was filled with rows upon rows of stasis pods, their surfaces scratched and fogged from the inside, suggesting desperate attempts to escape. Another room revealed an altar of blasphemous symbols, surrounded by candles that still faintly burned with green flames, suggesting recent occupants. Yet it was the macabre artistry of the Dark Eldar that truly tested the Templars' stoic demeanor. Skinned bodies were hung like grotesque tapestries, the victims' faces frozen in expressions of anguish. Cages made from bone and sinew held skeletal remains, remnants of beings who had experienced prolonged torments. But it was not just the sights, it was the sounds, the dripping of water, the distant screams, the whispers in the dark, that created an atmosphere of oppressive dread. Suddenly a scream, closer this time, broke the Templars from their silent march. From the shadows, dark Eldar witches emerged, their eyes gleaming with malicious intent. The initial skirmish was brutal. Chainswords met with jagged daggers in a flurry of sparks and blood. A witch, swift as a shadow, lunged at Brother Aldrich. Her poisoned blade found its mark, piercing through his armor's weak point. Aldrich cried out, his voice echoing through the halls before he crumpled to the ground, lifeless. Before the witch could celebrate her kill, Ferox was upon her. With one fluid motion, his power sword cut through her, ending her cruel laughter abruptly. The chamber was a whirlwind of violence. Bolter rounds burst witches into red mists, while others displayed their sadistic skills, weaving through the Templars' defenses to deliver debilitating strikes. Chaplain Morrisai, his rosarius shimmering, channeled his fury, smashing witch after witch with his Crozius Arcanum, each impact a testament to the Emperor's wrath. In the midst of the carnage, Ferox locked eyes with a witch succubus, clearly the leader of the raiding party. She was a vision of deadly elegance, her every movement a dance of death. Their duel was intense, with neither giving an inch. Every swing, every thrust was parried, the two combatants seemingly evenly matched. With a roar, Ferox lunged, putting all his might into a single blow. The succubus deftly sidestepped, but not entirely. Ferox's blade grazed her side, drawing blood. Using the brief moment of respite, the Templars rallied, their combined firepower forcing the Dark Elder to retreat. Gathering their fallen, the Templars continued their grim exploration. Beyond the initial ambushes and gruesome galleries, the desolation's embrace seemed to transform. The halls twisted and contorted unnaturally, defying the architectural norms of any known shipwright. It was as though the space hulk itself was a living, malevolent entity, reshaping its innards to confound and torment its intruders. The Templars' auspexes started to malfunction, their screens filled with static or displaying looping, distorted images of long-forgotten battles. The only reliable means of navigation became the lumens attached to their armors, casting long, haunting shadows on the decrepit walls. Marshal Ferox, ever the beacon of unyielding strength, led his brothers deeper into the bowels of the hulk. The Templars soon entered what seemed to be a grand hall, its ceilings lost in darkness, with massive stone pillars, strangely untouched by the passage of time. At the center stood a vast obsidian obelisk, adorned with disturbingly intricate carvings of tormented souls and grotesque beasts. Its surface seemed to shift, the carved faces contorting in agony. Chaplain Morrisai approached the monolith cautiously, sensing the malevolent energies emanating from it. As he reached out to touch its surface, the very ground trembled, and from the shadows emerged grotesque creatures of nightmare. Warped beasts, touched by the chaotic energies of the immaterium, lunged at the Templars with unnatural speed. Their twisted forms, a blend of sinew, scale, and claw, darted from pillar to pillar. With each passing second, the hall was filled with the sounds of roaring, hissing, and the anguished cries of Astartes. Brother Gideon's heavy bolter roared to life, cutting down 3 of the beasts, but not before one of them managed to sink its teeth into his shoulder pauldron, tearing it away in a spray of cerulean blood. Another Templar, Brother Lucan, was not so fortunate. Caught off guard by a warped beast's venomous tail, he was pulled into the shadows, his screams echoing long after he was out of sight. As the Templars tried to regroup, the obelisk pulsed, releasing a blinding light. When it subsided, standing before them was an Archon of the Dark Elder, clad in ornate armor and wielding a wickedly curved blade. Flanking him were his elite guards, the Incubi, their claves gleaming menacingly. "Welcome to my domain," the Archon sneered, his voice dripping with malicious delight. "I must thank you for ridding me of those bothersome witches earlier. Now let's see how you fare against true warriors of the Dark City." With a gesture, the Incubi charged. The ensuing melee was a brutal spectacle. Claves clashed with chainswords, power fists met agonizers, and all the while, the Archon observed with cold amusement. Ferox, cutting down an incubus, locked eyes with the Dark Elder leader, the two warriors sizing each other up. The battle raged on, each side trading blows. For every Templar that fell, 2 Incubi were dispatched. But the Archon's presence shifted the balance. With a swift, elegant motion, he impaled Brother Drusus, lifting him off the ground and savoring his dying gasps. Seeing one of his brothers fall, Ferox's fury knew no bounds. With a roar, he charged at the Archon, Their duel was a blur of steel and sparks, each warrior a master of their craft. But Ferox, driven by righteous fury, finally managed to land a blow, his power sword cutting deep into the Archon's side. The Black Templars found themselves at the precipice of a vast circular amphitheater. Its grandeur was both magnificent and disturbing. Its tiered stands were carved from obsidian, and they gleamed under a sourceless light, casting eerie shadows. The seating was filled with dark Eldar who murmured and laughed in anticipation. The ground of the arena was stained a deep crimson, with the dried blood of countless victims having soaked the sands over centuries. Skeletons of various races, some unrecognizable, were strewn about, evidence of past entertainments. Above, hanging like grim chandeliers, were cages containing mutilated, still-living captives, their moans echoing with despair. At the center of this arena of horror, a massive wraithbone tree stood. Its twisted branches were adorned with the still-beating hearts of sacrifices, each pulsing with an eerie luminescence. Beneath its sprawling roots, homunculus covens were at work, torturing and modifying fresh captives for the next spectacle. Marshal Ferox's voice, laden with disgust, boomed, "This is a shrine to the dark gods. We will purge this abomination in the Emperor's name." As if on cue, gates surrounding the arena's periphery groaned open. From them a flood of dark Eldar witches charged, their lithe forms dancing with deadly grace. Their hellglaives twirled, reflecting the eerie light of the heart tree. Accompanying them were beastmasters cracking their whips, unleashing horrors such as clawed fiends and chimerae upon the Templars. The battle was immediate and visceral. Chainswords roared to life, meeting the swift arcs of hellglaives. Bolter rounds met shadow fields, resulting in bright, dazzling explosions. The witches were swift, but the Templars' discipline and fury made them a force of nature. Brother Aldrich, a sword brother, found himself swarmed by a trio of witches. One managed to land a strike, her blade leaving a vicious gash across his thigh. But the pain only fueled Aldrich's fury. With a bellow, he swung his chainsword in a wide arc, its teeth tearing through the lithe bodies of two witches. The third, attempting to leap at him, was promptly impaled by his combat knife. A beastmaster's whip coiled around Brother Lucius's neck, yanking him off his feet. As he struggled, a clawed fiend lunged. In a last act of defiance, Lucius activated his jump pack, crashing into the fiend and sending both careening into a group of witches, the resulting explosion obliterating them. The intensity of the battle reached a crescendo when the homunculus covens entered the fray. Grotesques, their bodies bloated and twisted beyond reason, stomped into the arena. Their unnatural strength allowed them to toss Astartes like rag dolls. One such grotesque grabbed Brother Varen, squeezing with crushing force. Varen, gasping for air, managed to drive his power fist into the creature's belly, its innards spilling over him as he broke free. The Templars fought with every ounce of their strength, but the numbers were against them. Just when it seemed like they would be overwhelmed, a thunderous roar echoed. Drop pods rained from above, crashing into the amphitheater stands. Reinforcements had arrived. The Sword Brethren, the elite of the Black Templars, charged forth, their heavy weapons tearing through the dark Eldar ranks. The arena, once a place of amusement for the twisted Xenos, became a killing field. The sand, already stained with after the carnage of the amphitheater, the Templars, guided by a righteous fury, delved deeper into the space hulk. Their path took them into a vast underground network, a subterranean labyrinth carved with meticulous care. The walls bore etchings that danced and writhed as if alive. They told tales of the Dark Eldar's ancient history, of battles fought in the webway, of betrayals, and of their insatiable thirst for souls. Every so often an alcove would house a shimmering portal, through which distant screams and maniacal laughter echoed, hinting at the nightmarish realms beyond. Marshal Ferox led his battle brothers with grim determination, their footsteps the only sound disturbing the eerie quiet. Suddenly they came upon a large chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow. Chains of all sizes dangled from above, some ending in wicked barbs, others in cages holding still living captives. A massive chandelier, fashioned from the fused bones of countless victims, hung in the center, illuminating the chamber with a pale, ghostly light. Within this chamber, a ritual was in progress. Racks and homunculi surrounded a raised dais. Atop it was a sacrificial table, and upon it a figure writhed in anguish. The homunculi were engrossed in their dark work, chanting in a tongue that scratched at the very soul. Recognizing the figure upon the table as a fellow Astartes from another chapter, Marshal Ferox's fury knew no bounds. "Brothers, to arms! We will not let our kin suffer at the hands of these fiends." The ensuing battle was as intense as it was brutal. Every swing, every bolt, every battle cry was charged with righteous anger. A homunculus, his skin a tapestry of scars, lunged at Brother Darius. With deft precision, he unleashed a flurry of strikes, each narrowly evading Darius's power armor. With a swift motion, he plunged a syringe into Darius's neck, pumping him with a debilitating toxin. As Darius's vision blurred and his limbs grew heavy, the homunculus cackled with glee. But Darius, calling upon his last reserves of strength, crushed the homunculus's head with a powerful gauntlet-clad grip. Elsewhere, Brother Grimold faced off against a Talos pain engine. The monstrous construct bore down on him, its multiple limbs ending in an array of deadly instruments. With each parry and dodge, Grimold was slowly getting overwhelmed. Sensing an opportunity, he lunged beneath the Talos, driving his chainsword into its underbelly. With a guttural cry, he ripped the blade upwards, spilling the construct's vile fluids. The most poignant moment came when Chaplain Amalric, the spiritual leader of the Templars, ascended the dais. With a roar, he drove his Crozius Arcanum into the sacrificial table, shattering the dark instruments and freeing the captive Astartes. But the relief was short-lived. From the shadows, a grotesque figure emerged, a homunculus ancient, its form more machine than flesh. Its many arms, each holding a tool of torment, danced in anticipation. The chaplain and the ancient clashed in a battle of faith versus depravity. Every strike from the ancient was met with a parry and a prayer from Amalric. The very air seemed charged with tension. With a final determined swing, Amalric brought his Crozius crashing down, shattering the ancient's mechanical form. As the last of the dark pushing forward, the Black Templars, now bolstered by the saved Crimson Fist Astartes named Brother Octavio, encountered an even more perplexing chamber within the Space Hulk. Unlike the other malevolent locations they had previously seen, this hall was hauntingly beautiful. It was a grandiose library filled with ancient tomes, scrolls, and artifacts from millennia past. The walls, high and vaulted, shimmered with projected memories, holographic displays showing scenes of both the Dark Eldar's conquests and their decadent pleasures. The Templars treaded carefully, knowing that any moment could lead to an ambush. Brother Octavio shared tales of his own experiences with the Dark Eldar. They relished not just in the pain, he whispered, but also in the history of their prey. As the Astartes delved deeper, they discovered that this was not merely a library but a mausoleum of memories. Captured souls contained within crystal phylacteries were lined up on ornate shelves. Each soul seemed to be trapped in an endless loop of their final, tortured moments. The air was thick with their despairing wails, and a frigid cold settled in, gnawing at the bones. Suddenly, from the shadowy corners of the room, mandrakes materialized, their ethereal forms almost blending with the darkness. They bore wicked, serrated blades and moved with a silent, predatory grace. Almost invisible, their strikes were as swift as they were deadly. Sword Brother Elias, focusing too intently on a phylactery, failed to see a mandrake emerge from his shadow. With one swift motion, the creature slit his throat, leaving Elias gasping for air, blood spilling between his gauntleted fingers. However, his demise was not in vain. His collapse alerted the rest of the squad to the threat. The Templars engaged the mandrakes in a fierce melee. The shadow beings were elusive, slipping in and out of the very darkness itself, their blades finding gaps in power armor with disturbing ease. But the Templars' faith and fury proved to be an equal match. Marshal Ferox, invoking the Emperor's name, activated his relic blade, its luminescence cutting through the darkness and revealing the hidden foes. Chaplain Amalric chanted prayers of fortitude, the words imbued with power, causing the mandrakes to recoil and hiss in pain. Brother Octavio, despite being unfamiliar with this squad, fought alongside them seamlessly. His power fist crushed one mandrake after another, leaving them broken and twitching. Yet, as the battle raged, something else stirred in the room. From a grand throne elevated on a dais and previously unnoticed, arose a figure of haunting beauty and malice, the succubus Lilithra. Adorned in wickedly barbed armor and wielding a glaive that dripped with venom, she moved with a dancer's grace, every step a calculated act of war. Marshal Ferox met her in singular combat. Each of their strikes was a blur, their combat a deadly dance. Lilithra's laughter, cruel and mocking, echoed as she evaded and countered the marshal's blows. However, Ferox's determination was unwavering. With a bellowed battle cry, he managed to land a glancing blow, causing her to falter. Seizing the moment, he drove his blade through her heart. The death of the succubus sent a psychic shockwave, momentarily stunning the mandrakes and allowing the Templars to finish them off. The room grew silent. The Black Templars pressed on, the very bowels of the space hulk pulsating as if alive, guiding them to its core. The winding corridors soon opened up to reveal a colossal chamber, dominated by a vast portal, a tear in the fabric of reality leading to the webway, the arcane realm of the Eldar. From the portal poured out a seemingly endless stream of dark Eldar, Kabbalite warriors, witches, and grotesque beasts of the arenas. At the helm of this force was an Archon, Vrexilith, adorned in midnight blue armor and a helm fashioned to resemble a snarling beast. His shadow field shimmered, distorting the space around him. Marshal Ferox stepped forward, raising his relic blade high. "In the Emperor's name, we shall cleanse this abomination." The battle that ensued was of epic proportions. Bolter fire echoed throughout the chamber, chainswords revved, and the air crackled with energy. The Templars, despite being outnumbered, held their ground, their faith unyielding. Chaplain Amalric clashed with a squad of witches, his Crozius Arcanum a whirlwind of divine fury, smiting foes left and right. Brother Octavio took on a Ravager skimmer, his power fist punching through its hull and ripping out its dark heart. But the pivotal moment came when Marshal Ferox faced Archon Vrexilith. The two warriors were evenly matched, each parry and strike echoing with power and precision. Vrexilith's huskblade, a weapon capable of stealing the soul of its victim, clashed against Ferox's relic blade, causing sparks to fly. With every strike, Ferox recited litanies of faith, his voice a beacon in the chaos. Vrexilith, growing frustrated, activated a device on his wrist, calling forth incubi bodyguards to his aid. But Ferox's brothers, seeing their leader surrounded, charged forth with a righteous fury, forming a protective circle. In the midst of this, Ferox saw an opening. With a mighty leap, he brought his blade down on Vrexilith, piercing the Archon's shadow field and striking him down. As the Archon fell, a psychic scream echoed through the webway portal, causing it to destabilize and implode. With the portal destroyed and their leader slain, the remaining Dark Eldar forces retreated, disappearing into the shadows from whence they came. The chamber, once echoing with the cacophony of battle, fell silent. The Templars, battered but unbroken, regrouped, offering prayers for their fallen and thanks for their victory. As they made their way out of the now quiet space hulk, the stars outside shining as a testament to the vastness of the Emperor's domain, Marshal Ferox spoke. "Hey everyone, I hope you truly enjoyed delving into the gritty realms of Warhammer with War's Edge by Maxwell Strathorn. Your support means the world to me. If you liked this journey and want to be part of more epic tales, please hit that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more content coming your way. Until next time, keep the faith and carry the Emperor's light with you. Emperor protects.